Welcome to First Byte, our Detroit Lions preview podcast. It is week 7. Your Detroit Lions, let me make sure I get this right because I'm not used to counting this many wins this early in the season. 5-1. That's 5. That's right. I just need to pull the 5 out of my back pocket. 5-1. And they're facing a very good Ravens team this week, and we are going to break it all down for you here. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the producer over at Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online. With me, as always, is senior editor of Pride of Detroit at Ryan_POD on Twitter, X, whatever. It's Ryan Matthews. Ryan, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. For those of you who are not enjoying this visual medium, I'm wearing my Super Bowl XL pullover. You remember that Super Bowl?
I do. In Detroit.
Steelers Seahawks in Detroit.
Yeah. The last time Detroit and Super Bowl were connected, but maybe that streak comes to an end. Is that the message you're trying to send?
I think you should kick it over to our guest.
Okay.
Let the people connect the dots.
Yes. As always, we like to bring in a guest from the opposite side of the aisle, so to speak. This man is no exception. He is the managing editor for SB Nation's Baltimore Beatdown and a freelancer for the Baltimore Ravens. He's at Kyle P. Barber on Twitter. It's Kyle Barber is back. Kyle, how we doing, bud?
What's going on, gang?
Oh, boy.
I gotta be back with you boys.
That's right.
This is great.
You're feeling good, apparently.
I love hanging out with you guys. I love you. I love my best friend, Ryan. This is going to be a phenomenal show. We got to spend time together instead of getting roped into one of your guys' streams because, oh, man, your fans just keep wanting to have me on. Now I get to be here because you guys want me here. It's wonderful.
Obligated, I would say. Not sure want, but obligated.
You want me here.
Well, Kyle, let's jump into this. Let's talk as we always do with the opponent's offense first. And interesting year so far for Lamar Jackson. They get the offseason deal done. I'm sure that was a really fun offseason for you, having to deal with contract drama for 4 or 5 months, whatever it went on for. But comes out this year and playing some really good football and playing a little bit of different football than maybe we've seen in the past. A couple Lions coaches have mentioned it already this week, but a lot of inside the pocket stuff from Lamar Jackson and a lot of, I would say, impressive throwing, which I think has silenced a lot of doubters. But let me ask you, like, first off, why? Like, and it's not that they're taking away his running game. Like, he still has a ton of running yards, but I guess why do you think that the Ravens are maybe focused more on keeping him in the pocket as a drop back passer?
I think the main reason is due to how much they relied on him as a runner in years past. In Greg Roman's offensive system, running the football is the primary goal, and then passing is secondary or complementary to the running game. So having Lamar Jackson, who is a full-fledged NFL quarterback who proved it in 2019 when he won the second ever unanimous MVP award, proved that he's a passer. If you need more proof than that, you're not ever going to find it because you're not actually going to allow yourself to see it.
Preach.
But whatever. Nonetheless. Oh, preach. I thought you said that's a reach. I thought you said reach.
He's on your side. Don't get so defensive.
I was like, all right, Ryan and I are fighting.
No. Preach,
yes,
man. Preach.
Thank you. So the Ravens have not been a passing offense since Lamar was really here, since they had Greg Roman added. They had passing opportunities in it. Yes, you saw how he performed with Mark Andrews. You saw how he performed with Marquise Hollywood Brown, but they never had a full-fledged passing scheme. A lot of teams would talk about how if you just guard 89 and 5, which were Andrews and Browns respectively, then you shut down their passing system. They didn't have anybody. Now they have more than enough weapons in what they've added over the offseason, which was Nelson Aguilar, Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers. They get Rashad Bateman back healthy. That's 4 former first-round wide receivers, and you bring in a coordinator that is more comprehensive in passing the football. It wasn't that Lamar wasn't passing previously, but now you have a full-fledged passing offense that is more complementary to the modern NFL.
Okay. Well, from there, I have more questions to ask you, Kyle. because as previously understood, I'm telling you to preach, right? Like, and I asked you this, and it's kind of weird because I already exchanged questions with you for 5 questions that we did on the website. But like, let's talk a little bit more Lamar, because I feel like even though he's getting some rub, his traditional box score numbers aren't eye popping, right? It's like 5 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but like the dude is having an MVP season without putting up MVP numbers, if that makes any sense to anybody who's listening. And Kyle's nodding his head in agreement. So like, um, let's jump ahead to the receivers though. Like you talked about OBJ, you talked about Rashad Bateman, you talked about Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. There's lots of talent, lots of potential, but the production seems underwhelming. Like, do you agree, disagree with that, and why is that the case?
I agree. The Ravens have not produced a full 4 quarters of sustained offensive production. Todd Monken today, when we asked about it, spoke on how they have yet to really put everything together. He's not pleased with how the offense is. When he was asked, "Are you pleased with how you've come together in the first 6 weeks of the NFL?" He said, "Pleased isn't the word that I would describe it as, because they haven't done enough. They've been successful. They are 3-2. They could arguably be 5-0 if not for 2 complete meltdowns of their own doing. But overall, a lot of it has to do with just the offense not delivering consistently. They are some of the best. They're one of the best offenses to begin each game. They have scored first in each of their first 5 contests. The problem is they have yet to sustain that. As the games go on, the offense seems to struggle more and more. And by the 4th quarter, they're one of the lowest ranked offenses by success rate and EPA and yards per attempt. So it's a problem that that's yet to really deliver.
Do you have an explanation of why? Like, why is that happening? Are they are they running out of gas? Is it a new system? They're just struggling with consistency. I guess part of it to me is like Ryan just kind of listed it all off. Like Lamar Jackson, if you're watching the games, looks outstanding, but those stats don't match it. And so people that don't watch the games, that box score stats, are like, okay, why is everyone saying Lamar's so good? His stats are so bad. So where's the disconnect happening? Why can't the Ravens put together a full 4 quarters?
Right. One of the biggest things is in the Steelers game, the Ravens had one of the excuse me, not the Ravens. Lamar Jackson probably had his best game throwing the football that I've ever seen. Efficient, consistently hit his targets, and not just in their area, but in stride or where he could protect it from the opposition. And the Ravens dropped 7 footballs. Zay Flowers dropped 2. Rashad Bateman dropped 1 in the end zone. Mark Andrews then dropped 1 in the end zone. Nelson Aguilar dropped a deep route that would have been at least a 60-yard touchdown. Odell Beckham Jr. dropped 1. Suddenly, it became this incredibly contagious problem that overshadowed Lamar, who would have had easily over 300 yards and 4 to 5 passing touchdowns. They did it just purely of where they caught the ball and gained 0 extra yards after the catch. That he would have been well over 300 and had 4 touchdowns, just because of how solid he's looked as a receiver, as a passer, and as a quarterback. He's using a lot more efficient throws. They're doing more wide receiver screens, which is certainly a reason for higher completion percentages and shorter throws, because they have guys that can get open in quick, short bursts, and that's been an area that they have the talent to maximize that area. Zay Flowers is an explosive wide receiver. His agility, his stop-start speed, getting him the ball in space as under screen options, and having one guy come out, for blocking and those bubble screen options. That's something that is allowing them to find success, but it's not enough, and that's why the box scores don't look gaudy. That's why they suddenly struggle later on, and I don't think it's exhaustion, it's consistency. It's a very frustrating thing, because they'll get behind the sticks on a first down. When they go for a run, they'll run it on first down. It goes for 1 or fewer yards, can go negative yardage, and suddenly they can't be aggressive like they are in the opening scripts of the first quarter, where they're marching down the field, they're going hurry up, they know what they want, they get the looks that they want, and the like. Another area of where Lamar has been successful, but it doesn't show on the stat board, is his ability to audible at the line of scrimmage. 2 of the biggest plays from last week were audibles that he did. He audibled for the Odell Beckham catch on the slant route that went for 32 yards, I believe. He audibled for a Nelson Aguilar play that went for another 20 plus. Those were the 2 biggest plays of the game until he connected with Mark Andrews down the seam against the Tennessee Titans in London. So that's why it's been he's looked good. Things have been successful, but they're not sustaining it. A lot of it's just consistency, and they'll get behind the sticks. And I think a little bit of it is also panicking. If we wanted to talk more in depth on that, as soon as there's a turnover, you can start to see the wheels kind of fall off, and they, in a hockey term, start to grip the stick too tight. They start to get stressed out, and they overcorrect as players. I think as coaches, I haven't seen as much of that, but there's certainly been some conservative play calling at times.
Well, I think for so long too, Kyle, as you mentioned earlier, in the Ravens teams of yesteryear, it was a lot of ground and pound. We run the ball to set up the pass, and going to your point that you were talking about in terms of in the first half, the Ravens are rushing at 4.9 yards per carry. In the second half, it's 3.6 yards per carry. I don't know how much of that has to do with the fact that you lose J.K. Dobbins in week 1 to an Achilles injury, and how you pick up the pieces from that. But like looking through the rest of the roster, speaking of yesteryear, there's a lot of running backs from yesteryear. Melvin Gordon is getting carries. Kenyon Drake is playing. You know what I mean? So like, how have the Ravens kind of picked up the pieces of the running game? And I mean, they rank really high in DVOA. I mean, like their rushing rank is 4th. Is that a product of Lamar Jackson is, still doing some things as a rushing quarterback, or where are the wheels kind of falling off for that Ravens ground game in the second half?
A lot of it is simply having the most dynamic rushing quarterback in NFL history. I mean, that alone is going to add an extra half yard to a full yard per carry attempt, just as not only for himself or as a team, but for the running backs. Having him always as a threat on the options and on the handoffs amount to the Ravens getting just even the split second difference to push past and get an extra half yard to a full yard. It feels like, just mathematically. But in the wake of Dobbins' injury, Justice Hill has been a player that's stepped up. He was a former 4th round pick by the Ravens. He was also a guy that got injured, and he's returned back from. He also suffered an Achilles tear in the same year that both Dobbins and Gus Edwards suffered their knee injuries. So that was 2 years ago. So that he's fully healthy, and he's been primed really well. His speed off the edge complements a more pass-centric offense and a more spread out offense, rather than Gus Edwards, who is just essentially Derrick Henry light, and in how he's averaged almost 5 yards a carry his entire career, and his performance as a runner. So those 2 have been the big compliments of not having J.K. Dobbins, is having those 2. Like you said, Melvin Gordon's getting carries, and so did Kenyon Drake, and they're trying to figure out what to do in their long term, because when one more of those guys goes down, which the Ravens have, I hate to say it, like some injury prone guys there. Gus Edwards, after that knee injury, has not been 100% the same. He's still performed admirably and has looked good through this season, but it hasn't been the same. Justice Hill came off the Achilles tear 2 years ago, and he still deals with some nagging injuries every now and again. So you got to be able to bring other guys in. And the veterans like those 2 we mentioned are options. Kenyon Drake was waived this week, though, because the Ravens are getting Keaton Mitchell from ECU back from IR designated to return. He suffered an injury during the final preseason game, and he has now returned. He played in last week, but he played exclusively special team snaps. But head coach John Harbaugh mentioned during the Monday press conference, we asked if he wants him to get more involved as a runner and involved in the offense, and that's something he hopes, because he has a lot of speed off of the edge, and I think he is a darn talented, fast guy that can complement this offense.
Well, the Lions obviously have, statistically, if you're going by yardage, the best run defense in the league. Really stout up the middle in particular. Tell me about the interior of the Ravens offensive line and how you think they might match up against the Lions run defense.
Yeah, the Ravens interior has talented guys, but a little bit of question marks when it comes to consistency, I would say, or just having that game-changing factor that you don't often see with interior guards. There's not many guards that you go, that guy's a game changer, but the Ravens have some good guys there. Starting at center, though, we'll go first, is Tyler Linderbaum. He was drafted in the first round last season, and he has taken yet another really big step up. He was one of the highest graded centers over the last decade, and a lot of people called him, a surefire Pro Bowler, but size kind of turns you off of him, because when you see offensive linemen that are 6'8", 6'5", 350, you see a center that is much smaller than that. He's sitting right around 300 pounds, 305, and has no aims to get any bigger. He's just a pure technician, and run blocking is his specialty. He is far superior at that than pass blocking, though he has taken a definite leap forward from last year. Last year he was ranked like 26th in pass blocking, but he's taken a step up. He struggles against really big defensive tackles. People that whooped him last year were Quinnen Williams, Vita Vea, Cameron Hayward, the really big name, talented defensive tackles. So that's all going to depend on the performance from the defensive line of the Detroit Lions. But in regards to that, the run blocking, that's something that you can be confident in Tyler Linderbaum if you're a Ravens fan, and that'll be a good competition for this game for sure. On the guards, you do have John Simpson, who was brought in as a free agent from last year. He's been consistent, nothing exciting to write home about, but nothing that's causing destruction for the Ravens offensive production. He's just a cliche, you don't hear his name called, he's doing a good job kind of player. And at right guard, you have Kevin Zeitler, who is infamously known as a guy who gets snubbed from the Pro Bowl just about every year, to where his wife even mentions it each week that each year, that she's looking forward to yet another year of Pro Bowl article snubs featuring her husband lists on websites. So the interior of the Ravens offensive front is solid. I won't say they're outstanding, but I think they're good. But Zeitler's shown a little bit of age, at least he did through the first few weeks. The last two he's looked to have turned a corner, but we'll see what happens when you go up against one of the best in the NFL.
We talked about the Ravens offense. Let's move to their defense. Probably inarguably their better unit, but obviously they got a pretty good offense as well. Lions offense, probably their better unit as well. So big matchup here. Let's just run down the Ravens resume here. They're second in overall DVOA, third against the pass, 7 against the run. Where is there a weakness? Is there a weakness? Where is there an opportunity to exploit? And follow up? No, actually just answer that one first. We'll follow up later.
As for the Ravens defense, I think they are what the numbers say, which are one of the best defenses in the NFL. They've been, you gave all the numbers to it, but as for weaknesses, very few. A lot of it comes down to injuries. The Ravens, when healthy, have studs across the defensive line, at outside linebacker, inside linebacker for sure. Cornerbacks, they have some talent, and safeties, they arguably have the best safety tandem when both Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton are healthy. And then they run 3 safety looks, and Geno Stone is involved in it. So when healthy, they have a lot of talent. But right now, Marcus Williams is not healthy. He's dealing with a torn pec that he's just kind of toughing out instead of opting for surgery. It was pretty recognizable last week when going up against Derrick Henry, and he's attempting to tackle him with one arm. It's not pretty. And so they have Geno Stone in there more frequently now, especially because he suffered a knee/hamstring injury when somebody kind of fell into his leg midway through the London game. But the Ravens are a fast, cerebral defense that I think are just solid all across. The Lions are going to have their hands full just as much as the Ravens are going to have the handful against this kind of offense. I think this is their greatest challenge. I don't think they've been challenged too much as a defense, but depth is solid everywhere. But I'd say cornerback, I think that's where the Lions could thrive. If there's any weakness, it's going to be in the cornerback depth. Marlon Humphrey is a darn good talent. Brandon Stevens has stepped up a lot this season, but that third corner, who's usually splitting snaps between veterans Ronald Darby and Rock Ya-Sin, they have kind of flip-flopped in between being consistent, they're inconsistent. They'll have great games, they'll have great series, and then they'll struggle and let up a third down reception or a big play. So that's an area to pay attention to. And speaking of, Ronald Darby was absent of today's practice, which he was not absent yesterday. So this is a new absence. We couldn't hear about it because Harbaugh was not scheduled to speak. So we'll have to find out more of that tomorrow or on Friday.
It was listed as an illness, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's an illness. Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah.
Jeremy, ask your follow-up question.
You alluded to it a little bit, but it's the question of you ain't played nobody yet. You look at the schedule, you look at the teams, the offenses in particular that the Ravens have faced. You got Houston with C.J. Stroud in his first career start. You got the Bengals in the midst of Joe Burrow's injury where he clearly wasn't 100%. You got Indianapolis, who was that the Dorian Thompson-Robinson game, or am I thinking the wrong? No,
that was Gardner Minshew.
That was Gardner Minshew, and then Cleveland, you played him, DTR. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh, horrible offense in particular, and then Tennessee.
Careful.
Oh, careful. Malik Willis. But yeah, I mean, you can only obviously, go against the teams that are in front of you. But is I guess, given that now you are facing a top 5 offense by most measures, does this feel like a litmus test? Does it feel like, is there any bit of like wavering of confidence in this unit, I guess?
I would say no. There's no wavering of confidence because these guys have played excellently. And, when you go up against inferior competition, you have to not just beat them, but beat them soundly. And the Ravens defense has done that. They're number 1 in the NFL with sacks, and that's something that going into the season, that was one of the biggest concerns was the Ravens pass rush. Well, they have 11 different guys with sacks right now. And that spans from the defensive line to outside linebackers to inside linebackers. I mean, the Ravens are flying in with everybody and taking care of business. So it's not a wavering of confidence, but 1,000%. I hate saying that sentence, but full well, this is the litmus test. Can you contend with a team that is on your level offensively to your defense? And this is a big game for the Ravens in that sense that, Mike McDonald has schemed really well against the first 6 opponents, but now it's a real deal situation. What are you going to do?
Well, Jeremy, I think what's most interesting about this matchup, right, is that we're not anticipating David Montgomery playing. Hopefully the Lions can get Jahmyr Gibbs back out on the field and they can, have him kind of let his hair down and do a little bit more, as we kind of saw in the Atlanta game this year where he got the bulk of the workload, especially in carries. But Kyle, I guess my question for you is this Ravens run defense, not maybe not the strength of their defense, but pretty darn sound. I mean, allowing just 4.0 yards per carry. They've only given up 1 rushing touchdown. And I mean, to be honest, I think like maybe the majority of those yards came on a Derrick Henry run last year or last week in London. So like, tell us a little bit about the Ravens run defense. Do you think that this Lions run offense is really gap sound in terms of their approach, and they want to beat you between the tackles, and they want to run up the middle, and they want to kind of out physical you, so to speak? Have the Ravens did they run up against that last week in Tennessee, and maybe there was a little bit of kind of bend don't break?
Before the 64-yard rush by Derrick Henry, the Ravens were allowing fewer than 1 yards per carry on Derrick Henry. They were completely swarming. They understood the assignment and know that wherever the ball is going in his arms, you take him to the ground, you beat him, and you beat the offensive line. You have to get through the offensive line because you can't allow him to get up to full speed. I think you're going to see a lot of that with this Ravens defensive front. And like you mentioned, that if they want to try and beat the Ravens between the tackles, it's a very hard assignment to do because the Ravens have a lot of big, talented players. Michael Pierce is a monster of a man. His nickname is Juggernaut. He's got he's got X-Men's Juggernaut tattooed on his leg. He's a big fella. And he's equal parts pass rusher and run stopper, and he's damn good at both of them. So it's going to be tough to get through there. And when you do, you still have Justin Madubuike, Broderick Washington, sophomore Travis Jones, and then Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith are the best inside linebacker duo in the NFL. They say it outwardly when we ask them if they believe this. They say it each time because Roquan Smith is a all-pro inside linebacker, and Patrick Queen is just continually progressed and proven that, when you draft a guy in the first round, they don't immediately set expectations, that they are not a bust. They have to develop, and some rookies take more time, especially a player that, didn't play a lot of college ball like Queen had. He only, I believe, had like 7-8 games on his resume because he played with LSU and was in and out real quick as a starter anyways, excuse me. But that duo is going to be really tough up against a really good running attack that likes to do the same. Like these are two units that love and relish being physical, and I think that might be one of the most fun aspects for Ravens fans and Lions fans to watch, is who wants to go get it, who's got the grit, all the cliche phrases.
Well, Jeremy, do you get a sense that Jahmyr Gibbs is up to that task?
It's a good question. I don't want to say he's not, but I think the Lions might be just let's not play that game this week. Let's
just
not
pivoting.
Yeah. I mean, we saw them do it in the second half against the Bucs, right? And
in real time.
Right, in real. Yeah, they had to do it in halftime. They had to be like, you know what? The run game's not working this week. We got to bleed clock. We got to do it a different way. And that's not easy to do against a Bucs team that likes to blitz a ton, that gets a ton of sacks as well. It's not going to be easy to do that this week either against the team that with literally the most sacks in the league, a team that sends a lot of pressure as well. It's an interesting conundrum to be in, but Ben Johnson basically admitted last week, like, yeah, we knew the run game wasn't working, so we abandoned it. Now, I think they can get more creative with the run game, but I think this whole like physical beat you up the middle thing, I think that might leave with David Montgomery. I mean, they talk about how much that is who they were. I think without him, they have to change a little bit of who they are. And I don't know what the answer to that is. Last week, it was a bunch of screens that turned out to be very effective against the Bucs. Maybe, Kyle, you can tell us, like, how have the Ravens been against screen passes? Is that something that they are maybe a little bit vulnerable because they are such an aggressive defense, or because there's so much athleticism on the field that doesn't work against them?
Yeah, it is more of the latter because of the speed of these inside linebackers. And like I said, they're really cerebral. They're a very smart defense. They understand and recognize a lot. I think Roquan Smith is a guy that's addicted to playing football and addicted to like the tape, just the process of it. And him arriving last season at the trade deadline has translated this defense into more of this workhorse approach and buying in approach that the Ravens have worked on. And I'm not saying that it's impossible to get past them. That's definitely not what I'm saying. There's been some success on screens, but it's far and few between because the defensive backs love to press up front. Marlon Humphrey is a linebacker that's playing corner at times, just in his physicality and the bizarreness of having a cornerback with a jersey number 44.
Don't like
but
it.
Nope. But that's how he plays it. And overall, that's just the Ravens style. I mean, you're going to have to earn all of these yardages, and or you're going to have to really beat them.
Yeah.
And that can be an Amon-Ra St. Brown burner. That could be a hitch route from Jameson Williams. That could be all sorts of things that you can get home run hitters on them. But it's not going to be easy to do that.
Right.
But I'm not saying they're invulnerable.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how the Lions treat the run game here. I think it's going to have to be some misdirection, some outside stuff, because yeah, I don't know if they have the personnel right now to beat the Ravens up the middle, and I think they probably know that they might not. So we'll see there. The last thing I want to talk about is all that pressure. You mentioned all the laundry list of Ravens with sacks this year. Is that a matter of being aggressive? Are they one of the higher blitzing teams? Are all their guys just winning their one-on-ones? How have they been so good at generating pressure?
Mike Macdonald likes to simulate pressure. He likes to send an extra guy. Patrick Queen is one of the best, I think, delayed blitzing inside linebackers. That's something that he's so fast, and his technique with his hands and his arms have really freed him up to perform and generate pressures. He's second on the team with 3.5 sacks. The only person with more is defensive lineman Justin Matabike, and he's tied with Jadeveon Clowney, who got 2 sacks last week to put it at 3.5. So an inside backer with 3.5 sacks, through 6 weeks is impressive, and that's something that the Ravens love. They want to confuse defenses. They want to send a corner, or a nickel from time to time. They want to put Kyle Hamilton in the slot as a big nickel and to blitz him off of the edge. That was really successful in against the Colts. He had, I believe, 3 sacks on that, or 2.5 or something of the sort. Like, that's something that this defense really likes and finds a lot of advantages on. But yes, there are times where it bites them. The Steelers kind of said it out loud when George Pickens caught the 41-yard game-winning touchdown over Marlon Humphrey. They knew in late in the game, in that situation, middle of the field, that the Ravens have a tendency to go cover 0.
Yeah.
And you saw Kenny Pickett call out for an audible. They got the look that they wanted, and they sent George, Pickens on a one-on-one against Humphrey. And Pickens has had Humphrey as kind of he's big brothered him a few times in their meetings, at least at Heinz Field, and he did so again. So that's an area that the Ravens like to send a lot and be aggressive. When Mike Macdonald was originally hired, I asked him about the transition between Don Wink Martindale's defense and what he is, because he was under Wink Martindale's program before he went to Michigan and came back. He was originally with the Ravens. He was the linebackers coach, and I asked, what is going to change stylistically? And he said a lot of it is the same. And pressuring quarterbacks and being the ones to push the envelope is always what they are focused on. They don't want to be the ones that have to react if they can have a choice in it as defenders.
What's going on, guys? Miko here from Pride of Detroit. Thanks for taking the time to check out this clip from our most recent POD live stream. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see where the conversation went from here, all you have to do is click the link in the description that'll take you over to our Twitch channel. And once you're on our Twitch channel, be sure to drop us a follow or subscribe if you're so inclined. That way you can be notified anytime we go live and be a part of our live audience, which means that you may be privy to content that doesn't always make it onto the audio version of the podcast or even onto YouTube. Also, if you're more inclined and you prefer an audio version of our live streams, you can click the links to both Spotify or Apple Music, which will take you to their platform, and you can download the entire audio version of the podcast and listen to it whenever you want to. Again, we appreciate you guys and thank you for the support. Be sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to this channel if you're new, and we will be sure to keep bringing you amazing Lions content.